You're listening to eCommerceFastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder, and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
Well, welcome back to another episode of eCommerceFastlane. I'm your host, Steve Hutt. Thanks so much for joining me today. Really exciting opportunity I have today. I'm excited. I have Vikas Jha, who is the VP of Engineering for the conversational commerce component at Bloomreach. He doubles down and focuses on this. We're really going to dig deep into what conversational commerce actually is. But one thing about Vic is he brings like a wealth of experience to the table. He's been, I think previously he was Director of Engineering at Google, and he founded several companies. I think even recently he had a company called Radiance Commerce, which I think was recently acquired by Bloomreach. And he has an extensive background in AI and kind of commerce technologies. I believe, based on my research for the show today, he's in the forefront, really shaping how brands and consumers are interacting kind of in the digital marketplace. So really exciting. He's a leader. I think we're going to learn a lot about what Bloomreach is doing about, I'm going to call it this conversational commerce or conversation sales assisted kind of technology. It's exciting. It's hot. So hi, Vikas. Welcome to eCommerceFastlane.
Thank you, Steve. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, this is, I have goosebumps right now. I'll tell you why. Because I can see the major change that's happening in the world right now when you think of what Meta is up to right now, what Anthropic is up to right now, what Google's working on. There's a lot of, and there's a couple other large players too that have these incredible large language models, and they just keep iterating and iterating. I think China's got a couple Chinese companies that have built some incredible technology also that can be leveraged through APIs. And so knowing all of this is happening, it seems there's so many diverse industries that are just like, literally there's billion-dollar companies that are being built leveraging these large language models. And it's such an exciting time in all different areas, from healthcare to logistics, and in your case, in helping direct-to-consumer brands, both the merchants and the customers. So maybe can you talk a little bit about the industry as a whole and kind of how Bloomreach is solving some unique challenges right now with their technology?
No, absolutely. And as you sort of talked about, there isn't an industry that is untouched by this absolute change. It's a step change in AI technology, and it's affecting every industry, and e-commerce is no different.
Right.
But just to set the stage a little bit, let me tell you quickly what Bloomreach does, and then we'll get into more specifically the conversational commerce part, which is what I look after at Bloomreach. So Bloomreach is an AI-powered SaaS platform, and at its core, basically, we personalize the online shopping journey for consumers that are on our customers' websites. And in fact, we have a name for our AI. We call it Loomi AI. And what it does basically is to basically combine the customer data and product data. So if you know e-commerce companies, those are the two key data assets they have, product data and the customer data.
Right.
And Loomi AI combines the two to create sort of these personalized customer journeys, again, at massive scale and across many channels. We have two key product pillars. We have customer engagement or marketing. That's one of our really fast-growing product pillars. And then the second is, of course, search and discovery.
Right.
And those are the two key manifestations of our Loomi AI technology. And then the third one, which is the one that's the newest member of our product portfolio, is this conversational commerce product called Clarity. Right. And that's the product that I manage engineering for.
That's very cool. I know we had Raj Dadada on, who's the CEO, and he, really dug a little bit into some of the unique kind of personalization things that can happen with Bloomreach as far as, the email and the SMS messaging. We talk a little bit about this RFM modeling, this recency frequency monetization strategy, and how to understand, how do we get the second sale, the third sale? How do we build customer loyalty? How do we think about the one-on-one personalization that can happen? And then even, like you said, wow, we can even can do a lot of experiments. And he says that's where this incrementality comes into it with the platform of like, how do we do proper A/B testing or experiments to incrementally build more lifetime value or average order size? So it's quite interesting what the platform can do. It's quite robust, but you can, and one nice thing, just for those listening, if you don't know Bloomreach, it's interesting. It's not an all or nothing kind of scenario. They have a wealth of products available from under their umbrella. And really, you can kind of crawl, walk, run, kind of, so to speak. And I think it's the same situation with Clarity now and this conversational kind of commerce component that's part of Bloomreach. I think it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about this kind of conversational commerce. I think, to me, the first thing that comes to mind, and I'm sure you're going to dispute this, but to me, it seems like, okay, is this like a bot, like a chat bot that pops up on the screen and says, hey, I'm here if you need me. And I have a little robot head. You see it on a lot of websites. And I think what they're trying to do is some brands are trying to save some money and saying, hey, is there a self-serve model opportunity here instead of having to deal with a human? What's my tracking number? Do you ship to Canada? What's your return policy? Some basic kind of FAQ scraping and just maybe massaging it with through ChatGPT, maybe in your brand voice. It just kind of is what it is. That's the one side of what I think of what conversational commerce is, but I think a lot of people don't really like it. It just has not really worked well. And so what's your definition of it? And then how are you different maybe at Bloomreach?
Yeah. So in fact, as the name suggests, conversational commerce is really, another way to refer to it is a conversation-assisted sales, for example. And in fact, that's not a new idea. Salespeople have used conversations to sell products for hundreds, if not thousands of years. But what is now possible is you can have these conversations using AI at massive scale at a fraction of the cost. And so it's the same idea that has existed in the offline world forever is now possible. You can do it at scale in the digital world. And so that's basically, even though the term conversational commerce is almost a decade old at this point, but it really hasn't taken off until just last year, 2 years since the LLM, because now you can really have those human-like conversations that go way beyond the FAQs that you talked about. And that's what is causing sort of this massive interest in the conversational commerce technologies. And, I'm happy to, I've been in this space, conversational commerce space for almost now 7 years through this last company that you mentioned, Radiance Commerce. That was my most recent startup that Bloomreach acquired actually end of last year, 2023 in December. And through Radiance Commerce, basically our mission was actually conversational commerce 7 years ago. And so I've been in this space for a long time and I've seen it evolve. And if you're curious, I can give you a little sort of short version of that journey. Absolutely. Because I think that's instructive. Yeah, so, we were part of this first wave of chatbot companies that came around, 7 to 8 years ago. And in fact, we were all building commerce chatbots. There was a cohort of these startups on Facebook Messenger platforms of all places, because back then Facebook Messenger had the most well-developed API amongst all of the chat platforms. And so we all built on that. And the interesting thing is that almost all the efforts, and we in particular were focused on the pre-sales part of the customer journey, not the customer support, but shopping assistant. That's what we wanted to build 7 years ago. Yeah. And we made great attempts at building it. Unfortunately, the AI that was available back then, which was basically your old and natural language processing NLP technology, just wasn't good enough to create these human-like sales agents or shopping assistants that we wanted to create. And after trying for some time, we sort of pivoted away to do conversational marketing, which is sort of a weaker version of conversational commerce, because that's all the AI could support back then. And then about 2.5 years ago, LLMs happened at scale. They've been sort of happening in the lab for a while, but in terms of consumer attention, suddenly 2 years ago, they burst out in the open for consumers to use. And that's when we pivoted back to our original mission at Radiance to build those conversational shopping assistants, because now with LLMs, the AI is just so good at solving sort of this product assistance or shopping assistance problems for the consumers. So that's what we did 2 years ago at Radiance, and Bloomreach, and at the same time, was also working on similar problems, and it made sense to join forces. And December of last year, as I mentioned, I joined, or our team, Radiance Commerce, was acquired, and we are here building this new product, Clarity, that I mentioned to you. So I've seen this firsthand, the evolution of this technology from the old style FAQ chatbots to really this modern AI-powered, virtual sales assistants. It's been exciting.
Yeah, it is really neat. And it's so fun just to see the fact that some brands are willing to experiment and try. And I think, unfortunately, just when you say just chatbots in general, what I find interesting is that some brands, when they test it, they get kind of customer feedback, and sometimes there's a little bit of rage clicking, and there's all different things. Like when you do kind of usability studies sometimes through a Full Story or Hotjar or Lucky Orange, whatever tool you're using, to kind of see what people are actually doing live on the site with recordings. And you can see a lot about that they're not working well. And I can see the interesting challenge that's on your hands of saying, hey, we don't want to just scrape FAQs. We're really trying to holistically kind of, make sure we're sharing the best information, product information to the customer based on what their needs are, and understanding the potential buyer's intent and kind of where they are in the sales funnel, and making them recommendations and pushing product links. And it's such an interesting market. I'm excited to learn a little about that. It's just and then I'd love to understand too about this. So there's the conversational commerce, but then I also hear this buzz around conversational search, and to me they would seem similar but different. Maybe what's your definition of those two? And then is in fact Bloomreach solving a little bit of both of those, and the conversational side and then the conversational search side?
By the way, that's a great question. I think, and a lot of people sort of have different interpretations of those terms, but the largely accepted understanding is that conversational commerce is this umbrella term, which includes conversational search, but it also includes, for example, marketing initiated conversational commerce. So if you think about the user journey, many of the users who come to your website come through marketing efforts, your SMS marketing or email marketing. And some of the users start their journey by searching for products. And you can present a conversational experience in either of those two journeys to assist the user. And that's what, by the way, as I mentioned, Bloomreach has two different related but different product pillars. One is a marketing pillar and the other is a search pillar. And Clarity, our conversational product, manifests itself in both of those pillars. So, for a marketing effort, imagine a user comes from an abandoned cart SMS or an abandoned cart email, lands on your website, and Clarity, for example, will, through various targeting and AI-based understanding, figures out that this user is a great candidate. It just came from a marketing program. This user is a great candidate to offer conversational assistance to. Then Clarity will pop up and then offer its assistance sort of proactively to the user, saying, hey, would you like some help with, I noticed you were looking for red dresses, and I noticed you looked at these two options, but I've got a third one to recommend to you. So that's what we call, it's sort of like the tip of your marketing spear. And that's one type of conversational commerce. Another type is the user started searching in a search box, and we determined based on the user query, hey, this particular user query is better handled through a conversational search, where you are, maybe the user said, I'm looking for a wedding gown. And you say, well, looks like instead of me just showing a bunch of random wedding gowns to this person, let me ask this person a couple of questions about their need. Hey, when is the wedding? Where is the wedding? What kind of wedding? And then I can offer some suggestions. So some of the search queries are better handled conversationally. And so Clarity will again pop up and offer assistance. And that's what we call conversational search, where the conversational experience is part of their search journey. Whereas on the other side, as I mentioned, conversational commerce can be part of their marketing journey. And by the way, conversational commerce can also be part of customer support journey, even though Bloomreach's focus is much more sales and pre-sales, but that does exist, the other use case. And now all of this together are covered by the conversational commerce term. But then as you can see, within that umbrella term, there's specific sort of subcases, and conversational search is one of them.
Ah, I see. Okay, very cool. And I know I went to Bloomreach's site and then I went in to look at a few case studies and I see some links to some pretty notable brands that have vetted the solution and are implementing, certainly some or all or parts of the Bloomreach solution. I think it's pretty amazing. It's ironically enough, one of the brands that I used to manage when I was a customer success manager at Shopify called Bokksu, which is a Japanese snack box company. And I know Danny quite well because I, managed his account for almost 6 years. And so it's interesting to see that he is using some or part of the Bloomreach solution. I haven't seen a case study, but I went to his website today and there is a chatbot that does pop up and I'm curious to see how it may work. It's always nice to have live case studies when people are using it. What is really neat, I just just so you know while you were speaking, I went to Bokksu's website and then I just asked a simple question in what I believe to be a simple question in the chat solution. And I just said, hey, do you ship to Canada? And it says, well, here's an article that I believe may help. And this is from the Bokksu Customer Happiness Bot, they're calling it. And then they have me, a link, that I could click on. It goes to and gives me the details. Was that relevant? Give me a couple options. And then I said, no, I need more help. And they said, okay, no worries. What's your email address? And then we'll, by using this feature, you consent to the recording information, yada, yada, yada. And now, boom, now Sienna, which very well could be a live person now, has come on board and says, hey, I understand that you need help with shipping to Canada. But it's not, because it says, Emmy, your Bokksu bot. It's so interesting. Can you explain to me what is actually going on here? Because it seems like that a live agent took over when I say, I got a link to something and I didn't get the answer that I wanted. I said, no, it's not relevant, or I need more information. And then I put my email address in there. Why do I need to put that in there? And see how your solution uses that. And then it seems like it's like a live person has now sent me back some more information about shipping to Canada. But then it has a thread at the end that says, Emmy, your Bokksu bot. So just want to get your feedback about what I'm seeing here.
Yeah. I think two things I'd note about that experience that you just had. First of all, in terms of the use case, clearly the use case you are sort of, part of in this case is a customer support use
Correct.
case. You ask a question about shipping.
Correct.
And while that is traditionally been an important use case, as I was mentioning earlier, an even more exciting and revenue-generating use case for retailers now is the sales agent use case, where you're asking questions like, I have a small living room, I'm looking for a couch or looking for a rug, what should I? So there's that use case, but the customer support is the other use case. So that's sort of one thing I would note about your experience. And the other one is just a human handoff.
Yeah.
So very commonly what brands are looking to do is to use this automated AI exchange as the first line of defense, if you will. And because, human agents are costly. Correct. And so they want to sort of use them as a second option. So I think in your case, that's once you mentioned that you did not get what you were looking for, it automatically handed you off to probably a human agent. And sometimes that happens implicitly, where the AI detects, hey, it didn't answer your question, so it automatically transfers. And sometimes it happens more explicitly, where the user asks, hey, I would like to talk to a live agent, and that's what the transfer happens. So that's probably what happened. I
see. Okay, very cool. I'm just curious, because you're right, that was a very transactional in nature. One other question I have too, that now that I'm on like technologies and things like that, what's Bloomreach's and even your mindset around playing nicely with other pieces of technology? Because I think what I find interesting is that a lot of mid-market brands, they have a certain tech stack that they need and they want to continue using. And then we're talking about this conversational commerce and then this conversational search component, just depending on the journey and the query and stuff like that. Does the Bloomreach technologies, is it able to interact with other pieces of technology in the Shopify ecosystem? I guess my main question is around siloing data. And I understand that Bloomreach really is, I'd say, almost the marketing source of truth, almost like a customer data platform, so to speak. But there's also other pieces of technology out there that make a business run. And so I just want to hear your mindset and kind of how they all talk to each other kind of dynamically.
No, 100%. I think commerce ecosystem is so diverse and has so many different platforms that you can't afford to be a silo. And Bloomreach absolutely integrates with a very large set of e-commerce sort of platforms and tools. In particular, as you mentioned, There's Shopify and there's Salesforce. There's there's BigCommerce and a lot of homegrown e-commerce platforms. So on one side, because Bloomreach's two product pillars are marketing and search, and those have to basically work very closely with the back-end e-commerce platform that exists. And in many cases, there's customer data platform that exists. And now, exactly as you pointed out, for marketing source of truth, Bloomreach is that, because Bloomreach is powering marketing programs, your email program, your SMS program, your web layer personalization or website personalization program. So all of that data lives inside of Bloomreach. But then things like product catalog, that lives inside the e-commerce platform, like your Shopify, like your BigCommerce, like your Salesforce. And so for that data, Bloomreach integrates with your platform to absorb that data and enable your commerce experience, like a search experience or personalization experience. And similarly, Clarity, this conversational product, depends on that product catalog data, and not just the product catalog data, by the way, also on product reviews. So for product reviews, we have to integrate with yet another review platform, if you will, and it leverages customer marketing data that lives inside Bloomreach. So Clarity, the conversational commerce product, is a perfect example of how you have to work with a lot of different sources of data, because you're ultimately your sales agent, the virtual sales agent that Clarity is only as good as the content it has access to. And that content, because remember, one of the big things technology-wise that we inside Clarity, our conversational commerce product, have to do is to force the AI to not use the knowledge of the internet. If you think about the big foundational models, they have the knowledge of the internet embedded in them. What we do is we separate out that knowledge and instead substitute the knowledge of the merchant or the knowledge of our client, which is their catalog, their blog articles, their product reviews, their customer data. All of that has to be now leveraged by Clarity to answer the end user's question, the consumer's question. So in order for us to do that, all of this content and data has to be absorbed through a variety of platforms that the e-commerce company is already using. So that's why I think you bring up a very important point. We have to really work together with all these platforms rather than somehow try to compete with them.
Yeah. Once again, Bloomreach does have a wide depth and breadth of product available that literally can take over a lot of their marketing stack, discovery. Like, there's a lot of things going on here. But I think that some people come back to the same kind of crawl, walk, run kind of situation where maybe it's just the Clarity product that's very interesting to some people right now, because maybe they're happy with Yotpo, or they're happy with Attentive doing their SMS right now, or Klaviyo, or whatever, there's happy and it's working for them. Or maybe they're using Loyalty Lion or something for their loyalty and points redemption and review and whatever. There's quite a bit of piece of technology out there. And so that, I think you've hit it home well, that you're intentionally building to make sure that you can enrich the data as best as possible through some of these other technology partners. And we're going to play, I've just actually gone to your partners page right now of technology integrators, and you have a lot of the biggies that I would expect from not just platforms, but other tech partners that I know many brands are using. So that's good on you that this is kind of where you continue to iterate business and want to integrate with, once again, you can't be a Swiss Army knife of all things.
Exactly.
But you can be really good at what you do, but play nicely with others. I think that's really cool. And while you're speaking to, I jotted down another question. I thought about what ROI looks like. Like, are there any kind of KPIs that maybe Shopify merchants, if they were to use the Clarity product, like what should they focus on? Like, how do you measure success of conversational commerce?
That's such a great question, by the way. And it also speaks to sort of this difference between chatbots and Clarity as we define it. So, if you think about chatbots, their whole purpose was answering questions. And that's what they were designed to. And they were not doing it very effectively because the technology back then was not very good. But that was sort of their purpose, is answering questions. We see Clarity's purpose as being a revenue generator for customers. And so if you think about, you go to Best Buy in the physical store, on the floor, you have these sales associates. And sales associates, if you really think about it, their job, even though they're answering questions, their job is not answering questions. Their job is producing revenue. And that's how we see clarity. And we think, by the way, because of the advances in LLMs and the fact that consumers are becoming very sensitized to a conversational way of interacting. Like if they go to Google, they're interacting with a chatbot. They go to OpenAI or ChatGPT, they're talking to a chatbot. So this idea that you will do your activities by conversing is taking root. And because of that, what we are predicting actually is that in a very short amount of time, 10, 15, 20% of an e-commerce provider's revenue would be driven through conversations. This is what we call the conversation-assisted revenue. So the real change in perspective is, hey, conversational commerce is not a way to answer user questions, although that is one of the uses. Conversational commerce is a new revenue stream. Much like when SMS, by the way, came along, retailers understood that SMS could account for 10, 20, 30% of their revenue. Similarly, conversational commerce is going to account for a very significant portion of a retailer's revenue. And that's why they have to sort of take notice of this new source of revenue. And that's what, Clarity sort of is here to power for these retailers, by the way.
So are there any case studies that, you don't necessarily have to call out a particular brand, but I'm curious about, so if that's what the KPIs are and you can see that you can really start to directly attribute revenue and LTV out of
That's right.
the fact that Clarity is doing what it's designed to do about this kind of sales assisted kind of customer journey recommendation engine. Like it's so interesting kind of what it does. And so I could see how you could directly attribute that sort of thing. And then you can see it on the back end too. It's like, hey, it's clearly working. Look at all of these sessions and look at the lift that's happened for these businesses that are connected. And so knowing all of that, is there one particular brand or a type of brand, if you can't call them out directly, like they connected to the Clarity product and vetted other solutions, chose Bloomreach, took the Clarity, ran it, and and here's kind of what they're seeing as what success looks like now by implementing it.
No, 100%. And by the way, just to sort of complete the answer to your KPI question, I mentioned one, which is what percentage of the revenue is conversation assisted. And that will take some time for it to grow because it's a brand new area. In the interim, the other KPI that many of the brands are using is the lift in conversion rates. Is a user comes in and you have a control group. The control group did not have access to a conversational sales assistant. And then the other group did have access. And then you compare the conversion rate of the two groups. And that's really sort of the first KPI that they're measuring. And then over 6 months, a year, 2 years, the second KPI is, hey, what percentage of my revenue came through this new program that I put in place, which is the conversational commerce program. So those are two KPIs. But coming back to your question, so we are actually in the process of putting together these case studies because we've been working with several brands as part of our beta program this year. And so none of them, those are public yet, so I wouldn't mention particular names, but I'll tell you the kind of customers that are seeing the benefit more. And if you think about there's a class of retailers which we call the high consideration purchase type of retailers, your furniture store, your jewelry store, a wine store, where the consumer has a more considered purchase. Hey, if I'm buying a couch or if I'm buying a particular piece of jewelry, I have a lot of questions and I can, when I walk into a physical store, a furniture store or a jewelry store, there is almost always a product advisor who's there to help me select a product. And so that's one type of customer. We're working very closely with the furniture brand. And so we're seeing a lot of benefit to this mode of purchase for this high consideration set. And then the other group where we're seeing a lot of interest and traction is what we call the SKU complex, where there's a lot of different types of SKUs. And the user usually has a problem in selecting. There's a lot of choices. So whenever there's a lot of choices is one type of customer where we are seeing clarity shine. And the other is where there's a lot of consideration, thinking about a big ticket item that they're trying to purchase. So those are the two areas where I would say there's been a lot of success, but concrete case studies will come out in a couple of months, hopefully, and then you'll see.
That's lovely. Well, I don't know if there's anything else that we want to touch on. That's kind of the bulk of the questions I had for today. And I feel I'm definitely going to have a link to Raj's interview for those that haven't listened to it, because we really went through some of the, I guess, other parts of the Bloomreach platform and kind of really talked about once again, the fact that individually they're available a la carte. And then as you kind of work your way through the journey, if it's a marketing side or the discovery side, and you can kind of add on things, and you'll have a success team member there to kind of help you and saying, hey, we see how things are going along with the platform. Hey, have you considered this? And it's very easy to kind of add things on. It sounds like the clarity solution, really out of the box, if brands already have marketing, let's say technology doing, let's say their loyalty program, or they have another piece of technology doing their UGC content and reviews, and that's fine. You can easily add on the clarity product with all this existing tech stack and test out just the clarity product. And then from there, you can make decisions down the road if, well, I would like Bloomreach to take over more pieces of my tech stack, being it, email and SMS. And I know you get into web personalization and search, like on page. It's really, you guys do a lot and you do it really, really well. And so I'm going to give you a lot of kudos to that. So do you have any kind of parting notes or kind of anything that you'd like to send to our listeners and saying, hey, if this is of interest, if this conversational sales assisted kind of technology is interesting, what do you believe some of the next steps should be?
No, I think that's again a great question. As I was mentioning, I think the general wisdom that a lot of people are now agreeing on is that this new revenue channel, if you will, of conversation assisted commerce is about to take off. Consumers are ready. And so the brands have to really embrace it, and they have to start building, because it takes 6 months to really perfect your conversational shopping assistant, because you start and then you see the initial feedback and then you fine tune the content and all of that. So I would really invite brands, and we in particular focus on mid-market to larger brands. That's sort of Bloomreach's focus. But I think brands of all sizes have to embrace this conversation assisted commerce category, and they have to really start testing out different solutions. And it, as you pointed out, this technology fits really easily, seamlessly along with your entire marketing stack or your search or discovery stack that you have. So you really have to take a look, and Bloomreach is obviously has been a pioneer in this space, and we'd be happy to work with you. But there are other vendors too that attempt to do similar things. But one way or another, retailers really need to have a product like this. Otherwise, they'll miss out on a significant source of a new channel of revenue that is emerging very, very quickly.
Yeah, this is lovely. Well, thank you, Vikas, for coming on the show today. It's been very eye-opening. There's opportunities available to brands, and it's, it comes back to the top of the show. And I said, how is conversational assisted sales and this conversational commerce, how is it different than a chat bot? Well, clearly, you're leveraging a lot of great technologies. And even over the last year or two, even prior to Radiance or post Radiance, you can just see things have really evolved. And I think that, I don't know, there's a term out there that talks about how quickly technology doubles. There's a technical term around that. And it just seems that we're living in this era right now where I think it's nice that they have people like yourself that are just doubling down and focusing on this area. And I'm excited to see the continued iteration of this platform. And I'll make sure in the show notes I have a link to Clarity and any kind of next steps. And yeah, I would agree with you. I welcome people to go to bloomreach.com and have a look. Easy to do a demo. You can have, there's a big yellow button in the corner that's very easy to click through, and then bang, get that set up and go. And I think it's a really good next step for those that, hey, if you're in the mid-market and you've got good product market fit and a decent catalog and you're really big in fashion, this is a very interesting solution that I think people should consider.
Absolutely. And we live in exciting times, and I'm excited about where AI takes us. And by the way, I really enjoyed our conversation, and thanks for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure. All right. Well, have yourself a great afternoon.
You too. Bye, Steve.
All right. Bye-bye. Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of eCommerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.